In his second letter to the church in Corinth, the Apostle Paul offered this encouragement. We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but we are not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Hello, I'm Joyce Davis, lay leader of the Susquehanna Conference of the United Methodist Church.
And I'm Barry Robison, Harrisburg District Superintendent and Dean of the Cabinet.
These words from 2 Corinthians 4, 8 through 9 have inspired God's people through challenging times. Every day, as we navigate through a pandemic, tensions in our society, and disagreements among ourselves, we in the Susquehanna Conference have found comfort in these words.
Throughout these perplexing times, you, our congregations and our pastors, have found ways to blossom rather than be crushed, to engender hope rather than yield to despair. In two separate segments, your conference leadership team will highlight some of the congregations that have grown in their faith and in love. They are proving by their attitudes and by their actions their confidence that God has not abandoned us. Here are just a few of the great stories recommended by their district superintendents.
I'm Pastor Josh Tobias here at Faith United Methodist Church in Woodbury, Pennsylvania. We were surprised, like anybody else, with COVID shutdown. We started, I think, that first Sunday of November by doing a worship gathering from the living room of the parsonage, and we did that for 2 weeks. We made a choice at that point to just do it, to just jump in and do whatever we could to try to keep people connected. And we chose to go with YouTube because YouTube was free, and it allowed us to use a chat feature so that we could keep people connected. In the midst of the chat, I think people found community because there was love and there was care and there was support and there was acceptance there. And that drew people just by its own merit, that love and that care. And so people that were connected to us here were then connected to people who weren't worshiping with us, who invited them to participate. And between November and April, we've been able to lead 4 people into a first-time relationship with Jesus Christ that may have never experienced that before. Even a small church in a rural area can be effective for the kingdom, frankly, in a global way that's not limited by our demographic or our physical location, but it sort of expands for us the ability to reach people where they are. And to me, that's the exciting part about it, is that we have the opportunity to be a part of that, just a little tiny part of it. But that changes life for an individual and a family and a community and ultimately the world, which is, wow, that's what we're here for, right? So.
Hello, my name is Todd Christine. I serve as the lead pastor here at Grace United Methodist Church. When we have a culture of call, it comes from a subculture of ownership, saying, I have come not to get something, but I've come to give and offer myself in a self-sacrifice to do the work that God's called me to. So to be in ministry is to know that I have a call, but to also recognize that you have a call. And it's my job as the pastor or as a Christian disciple who is mature to help you recognize and fulfill that calling in your life and to do my best to affirm and uplift that. I do my best to get them connected with people who will be their support system as they get along in ministry and emphasize with them how important it is to be part of a community of colleagues that will support them. It's crucial. to have a person as young as a high school graduate or a college graduate to come up to them and say, listen, I see this in your life. I see these qualities. You want to sit down and have a conversation and begin with giving them opportunities to be cultivated, and to see the people who would never have led small groups or never have led a mission trip or never have led any kind of worship area do so because you came alongside them is fantastic. God calls the senior citizens as much as he calls the middle-aged adults, the married people, the single people, the people who have it all together, the people who are a train wreck. God's got a calling on everybody's life, and if we as the church are going to be the community that we're supposed to be, that means that we have to employ everyone. And that's why it's important that if we don't have that culture of calling, of cultivating people's role and their faith role in the life of the church, in the life of sharing the gospel, then that's a symptom that maybe we're missing something very, very important, very, very vital.
I'm Deborah Rose. I'm a retired elder, and I wound up coming here very part-time, expecting not too much, and but I'm making leaders in this place. I was walking into a church that had a pastor for a really long time, and then had two shorter-term pastors, and people had left. They had used to be a big, filled congregation with 20, 25 kids, that kind of church. I walked into probably 30 people, mostly elderly. It was very almost depressed. So that's when I had already put together a PowerPoint proposal for them so that they weren't going to get bored. And we talked about, what the expectations are of a vital church. This study gave us a way to look at how do you reimagine who you are, and how do you reimagine who you can be. A bunch of them got together and they made soup, and they took them to people that were homebound and people who are in some of the poorer housing complexes around here. And people just couldn't understand that they were just giving them something like that. So they're learning to step outside the building, which is kind of a cool thing to watch happen too. I think that even some of the older folks are picking up on the enthusiasm, and my greatest pleasure has been baptizing. I baptized 3 babies and 2 older kids this year, and to have 5 kids want to go through confirmation and wanted to understand their role in the church. That was terrific. I really enjoyed that. Some of the congregations decide it's time to close, or they catch fire, and they start to do something different than they've always done.
My name is Amy Ritter, and I am the Executive Director at the Mommy Shop here in HOUSERVILLE. Clothing is very expensive, and for the most part, especially the tiny stuff, doesn't ever get worn out. They grow out of it too quickly. So we look at ourselves as the great recyclers. So we're sharing things over and over. When they're done with it, they bring it back, somebody else gets to use it. We're open to anyone. We have no restrictions on demographics. We don't ask for financial information. Anyone can sign up to get clothes for their kids for free. They can have up to a full bag of clothes per child once a month.
These are all white tags, so they go in your free bag.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's only the colored tags.
Okay.
That you have to pay for.
It's
And the
not about the clothes. Kids need clothes. Everybody needs clothes and shoes and coats. But what we find is our families need community. A lot of our moms don't have their moms, so we've become surrogate moms. They ask advice. We talk about potty training. They're coming to have somebody to tell their good stuff to, their bad stuff too. And we're here for them. People love to donate because they know we're giving most of it away.
So what we do is we take the bags and we put them over here in sorting bins.
We started very small, and I never could have imagined it being like this in the beginning.
My name is Lauren Miller. I am the youth pastor here at Catawissa Parish. Prior to the pandemic, we had 8 active youth members, and we were meeting online during the pandemic, and a lot of youth in the area heard that we were still active. And one thing that was really cool is during the process when we were meeting through Zoom, we had some youth join us. So we went from 8 active youth members to 23 active youth members currently. We were trying to figure out, okay, how do we get involved in a community, especially during a pandemic? So one thing that we decided to do was start a card ministry. We sent cards to all the frontline workers in Geisinger. We sent cards to those who are struggling with COVID in Geisinger. We sent cards to a local nursing home in Catawissa. So we got tremendous feedback. One of the nurses that I sent the cards to give them to the people in Geisinger, she took pictures and they were just plastered all over Geisinger. My thing is you really need to adapt to the current world. If church is meeting online, if you don't do anything to engage with the youth and have that consistency of youth group and the consistency of God, then how are they expected to grow in their faith? So we met every Wednesday, and the youth often said, this is one thing that I look forward to every single week, is meeting and learning more about God and digging deeper and having that consistent pattern of meeting. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it started with the kids coming to youth group. So it's just really learning how to think on your feet, how to be open-minded and see what comes your way.
My name is KATHERINE RAUHAUSER, and I'm the Director of Discipleship and Congregational Care and Student Ministries here at The Well. We met outside all summer out at Town Hill United Methodist, around a campfire ring most of the summer. Really good conversation, getting to know the students, getting to know the culture a little bit better, and helping them build a sense of community. Whether we were online or in person, we started off with, where have we seen God in our lives this week, or the lives of those around us? What are the good things that we see happening? Sometimes I get blank stares, and sometimes they come in and they're excited. They're like, oh, I've got a God sighting. And they can't even wait for youth group to start to tell me. So we started last summer. We actually did a faith and games kind of series. We're really building that expectation of what we're doing here. And ever since then, I saw kind of a culture change. Some of these kids that seemed totally checked out when we were opening up our Bibles, they've started volunteering even just to read scripture out loud, which when you've got a very shy teenager and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I'll read, that's a big deal. That's a big win. When we had to go online and our numbers went down just a little bit, I was sad. I knew there were reasons for it beyond my control, beyond their control. But the second that we came back in person for gatherings, they came back. And, you know, when they have to go for a sports game or whatever, the next week they come back. And so I think that just speaks to how hungry they are for community and for faith.
The House of Hope is designed to take up to 12 women coming out of homelessness and work toward sustainability. So all the barriers that they may have come with, and statistically there are so many, So we're working to get at the root of those. They're having a budget coach every week. We have over 60 different life skills that have been identified with goals and objectives that they will be working toward, and they'll be measuring them themselves. And so all kinds of support, case management, a counselor who has volunteered. Our feeding program operates 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. We have a devotion every day, and then we serve a meal, and it is generally a wholesome meal. The Saturday dinner church is a very abbreviated church service where people come and they get the message, they get soul food, and then we feed them regular food. The goal is to make it feel kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. So it's this great mix of people, and I always encourage visiting churches to sit down at a table and interact with our guests, because that's what they really want. You know, people don't want to be looked at. And this came directly from the Sojourners. They have said, you know, please, we want people to ask us about our life, ask us how we're doing today, talk about sports, just connect with us. Don't just give us a meal and a smile. So we try really hard to make those connections, and they've been impactful on both sides. This was the first homeless guy who wrecked me. He showed up in a parking garage, and he got sent over here, and I found him sleeping at the front door. We shared with him, we talked with him, we kind of took him under our wing because he was so atypical of what people perceive with homelessness. One of my friend's husbands had just died, and she happened to have his coat in her car, and he had a coat on that wasn't appropriate for the season, and it was ripped like from here all the way down to here, and his shoes flopping around, and she just happened to pull up, and I was with her, and she gave him this coat, and so this is him. Like the next day, wearing that coat.
My name is Josue Marrero, and thank God I'm the pastor of Genesis Church. We work together with United Methodist Church, Calvary Ministry here in York, Pennsylvania. We like to impact the community, doing different kind of activities. I play softball, I like sports. We start talking about God. They start testifying experience with God. Some of them, their lives was in danger and how God saved them. We do home church. We go to houses or homes to just spend time with them, make friends. And then if they want, we the next time we visit the home, we can do a service or just sing some songs and just pray.
Nos gusta mucho compartir. We love to share everything. Feed on other people that are in need. So I love it, everything, all of that.
We are seeing miracles. People getting healed. For example, we have a couple of people here in Genesis that one of these ladies, sister, one woman of God, she was not walking. And now she's walking. She has cancer also, and now the cancer disappeared. People are having experience with Jesus Christ, accepting Jesus Christ, or renew their life against with Jesus. We want the people to know that here in Genesis, they have the opportunity to have a new beginning, start again.
Aren't these inspiring ministries? I hope they've given you and your church some ideas, some inspiration on how you can remain vital in ministry.
There are so many different kinds of ministry taking place around our annual conference. Each one glorifies God. Each one extends God's love to our neighbors. Each one is a piece that fits together to form a larger picture of God's work among us. The second half of this video will be shown a little later in the conference. You'll see even more testimonies of your impressive ministry in that section. Stay tuned.